Eduardo, we have a very special partnership between NHCC and ELA, and we're going to explain the acronyms here and all, but perhaps we can start just with a quick introduction of you and the organization that you represent.
Yes, so as Executive Director of the National Hispanic Corporate Council, or NHCC, our mission is to provide a collaborative community for Fortune 1000 companies around their access to Hispanic market information.
Tell me about the Hispanic market. You threw some numbers at me the other day, and I was like, wow. So how big is it, and why should organizations pay so much attention to it?
Absolutely, that's an excellent question. And we pride ourselves in being able to deliver these cultural competency and these data points that allows for companies to better either enhance or elevate their strategy. So when we look at the US Hispanic market, they offer the following data point. When we look at historically, in the 1980s, there was about 15 million Hispanic here in the United States. In 2010, there was 50 million. Now, today in 2021, it's 60 million. So it's 18% of the total population. So you can see that growth between then and now. As we look in the future, it will be 75 million by 2030, 100 million by 2050, and 111 million by 2060, or 30% of the total population. So what do these numbers mean in terms of your talent, your customers, and other areas of the business? When we look at Hispanic millennials, there are 24 million, accounting for 25% of all millennials. We look at the median age for Hispanic is 27, non-Hispanic white is 43, and African American is 34. So you see it's a much younger demographic. The most common age or mode is 11. So they're barely getting into high school. They're barely going to college and so forth over the next couple of decades. So this is really where the growth is going to happen. And how do you prepare your company for receiving those individuals part of your talent and workforce, but also part of your customer base as well? The Hispanic largest population segment is 18 to 29, where non-Hispanic is 60 years old or plus, so much older demographic. It's a big difference here. And where that is happening is primarily in the South and in the West. So there's a lot of interstate migration, and that's a different conversation, but we can have. The second tier market is really where we see the growth. So coming away from Chicago, New York, LA, and San Francisco into areas like Milwaukee, Atlanta, Columbus, Nashville, the Carolinas. So that's to give you a little background around the population side of things. When we look at the growth, it's a $2 trillion market, or the 7th largest economy in the world, right here in our own backyard. And one of the data points that we'd like to share is since the Great Recession, 100% of growth in this country has been driven by a multicultural segment, that is Hispanic, African American, Asian. Of that 100%, almost 50% is Hispanic attributed to that community. So when you look at consumer spending, mortgages, consumer product good, who's buying things in our country that's propelling our economy, almost 50% can be attributed to Hispanic. When we look at new workers, 74% are made up of Hispanic. And when we look at new businesses, 86% of all new businesses are driven by Hispanic. That creates another 3 million jobs around communities in our country. So organizations need to pay attention, because this is how you're going to acquire your talent, your customers, your supplier, and all of that is changing on a day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year basis as well. So the principal question is, how does this data trend impact your company? What are the opportunities to maximize the Hispanic market opportunity? And how do we leverage or increase your Hispanic talent, your Hispanic customers, your Hispanic supplier, and better relationship with the Hispanic community? What role can Hispanic and non-Hispanic ERG play in this factor?
Oh my goodness, that was like a stunning amount of data, but what the numbers themselves are stunning. And my reaction to that one data point I think a lot of people would have is the Hispanic market so much younger than the rest of the say the corporate market that we often focus on, the 60-year-olds and plus, as you said. So I know that NHCC does a lot of things to fill the gap, not just that gap in terms of understanding the age difference, but really understanding and being able to reach out to, as you said, future employees, customers, and so forth. So give me an idea of the kinds of things that you do as an organization, and specifically, who are you serving? Who are you working with to foster better understanding of how to reach the Hispanic market?
Yeah, absolutely. The way we serve our member, we work on a membership basis, and they're Fortune 1000 brand and large organization that their product and services. So we advise these organizations around their corporate priority, really through the lens of diversity and inclusion, but focusing on the Hispanic and multicultural segment or stakeholders. How do we do that? We offer a collaborative community that convenes leaders to connect, learn, share, and network around those best practices and resources so that they can address their priorities. Very much like the ELA and the ERG in that regard and that focus on developing and nurturing ERG, we're here to help companies better understand the Hispanic market and nurture the company in corporate performance. Our platform range from virtual to in-person learning and development. We have an annual meeting, regional forums, and other special gathering to take place. We also offer one-on-one group consulting session with internal stakeholders. And finally, we have an online platform or the NHCC Resource Center where you can find and obtain best practices, resources in presentation, article, research, etc.
That's great. So you have all these different ways to support and collaborate, consult with your member companies. What are the kinds of things that you most often hear from them? What are the challenges they're all wrestling with and looking for some help from you for?
Yeah, so all companies and organizations have goals and objectives that they're trying to accomplish. Many of these goals is to improve corporate performance, consumer growth, productivity, human capital, things of those nature. And sometimes to achieve those respective priorities, there are challenges and problems that may not allow them to get to that destination. So NHCC provides a resource, the platform to have these conversations, to build network and capacity, and to identify what other companies are doing well so that they can bring it back to their own company and implement. A lot of these challenges can be solved through diversity and inclusion effort. And again, really understanding D&I goals and the impact that each segment have to offer, you may be able to address those priorities and through that D&I multicultural lens. If you're looking to grow your customers, well, we just went through many data points that the customer is evolving, emerging, and growing and young. So how can we tailor your customer relation effort to a certain market that help you achieve your priorities? So that's one area. The other area is around talent. Companies are competing for talent acquisition, development, retention, all of that in various industries. So how do you address your challenges and problems that you may have around your talent and your human capital area? Again, the diversity and inclusion effort may be able to help you address that. How do you facilitate university relations program and other areas that you can help bring up certain demographic to their development?
That's great. That's great. So I want to also clarify, you have that one of the C's in your name is corporate, big, large, small, famous, not famous. Who's the mix of kind of clients that you've been serving?
So the core base of our membership are Fortune 1000 companies that you may know of, such as Marriott International, NBC Universal, State Farm, Coca-Cola, Shell, and the list goes on with many well-known brands and product and services. But we also work with large regional organization and also national organization that are, if they were a company, they would be a Fortune 1000 company. So major nonprofit, major association that are in the revenue of $1 billion or so.
Great. Now, the other day when I was asking you about NHCC and what you do there versus some other organizations in the diversity space overall, but also in the Hispanic market space in a similar support, you were really clear about why you're different. Can you share that with the folks that are watching this too?
Absolutely, yeah. So think of NHCC as a learning organization that supports the company. Wherever the company direction wants to go, we're here to advise them on diversity and inclusion effort, also with the Hispanic market. So we work with well-known brands and industry leaders, subject matter experts, and so forth, to advise D&I leaders and internal Hispanic leadership to support their respective goals for the company. We are comprised of Hispanic and non-Hispanic associates and executives that are responsible for these strategies. So we really pride ourselves in being able to bridge the gap with other segment that makes up the entire D&I umbrella to help companies elevate their goals.
That's really great. Of course, as a partner, ERG's Employee Resource Group and my organization, the ERG Leadership Alliance, we are so honored and thrilled to be partners and working together to really move that diversity needle, bring more awareness of not only the shifting markets, but the shifting needs of the employee base, right? I'm curious, like you hear a lot about ERGs from your members and the importance of it. So maybe comment a little bit about how you see not only our partnership working together, but the kinds of things that your members are looking for in terms of ERG support and what their concerns and curiosities are.
Absolutely. What we've seen is that a lot of our member companies are relying on their ERG to help them be the first point of contact within their diversity and inclusion journey. So really looking at them to help support the company, educate their colleagues and stakeholders on the importance of their respective segment and how they can contribute to that. So companies are really looking to their ERG as a focus group, as a place to start to advise them and help them better understand how the company can be better in terms of inclusion, but also how to work with diversity in customers, diversity in talent, and other areas of the business. So we've seen a lot of companies relying on their ERG to be able to provide that. Many of our members are tasked to support those organizational goals. And while many of them are different stages of their journey, we look at our partnership with the ELA to provide opportunities to our ERG to launch, grow, and thrive. So regardless of where you're at in your journey, we want to have the structure, the foundation, and the best practices for your ERG to make that impact with the company. Now, NHCC can be a resource to the ERG to help craft strategies now when looking about careers, culture, commerce, and community that should be driving on the overall ERG strategy. So we're here to support that.
That's wonderful in concept, but it's just wonderful because I know that you and your organization do really great work. We'd like to think we do really great work also at ELA. So joining forces and really using our synergy to help more organizations, more people, both in the ERGs and in the diversity seats, overall be more effective. It's just a joy and a pleasure to work with you. So anything else that you wanted to add to today's conversation, Eduardo?
Yeah, the last thing is how we can get together between the viewers of this webcast and our organization. So we welcome participation from you and your members on our platform. So you'll be getting timely communication of some of our upcoming exciting program. We'd love for you to participate. You don't have to be Hispanic. You don't have to be from the Hispanic ERG. We'd love other folks to come and join us as well as part of that. We invite you to connect on our social media platform to stay engaged with the latest communication and other important information that we discussed today. And finally, if there's an opportunity to be introduced to your D&I office or your fellow Hispanic ERG, we welcome that conversation as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you. You can see the information to reach out to Eduardo and the NHCC organization. Of course, if you're interested in the ERG Leadership Alliance, our website is exactly that.com. And I thank you all for watching and welcome any and all questions. Eduardo, thank you so much.
You're welcome.